Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Easy Peasy Books podcast. So, today is another one of those solo episodes, and I can tell you I'm afraid, but I'm talking about fear and the role that it plays when we're writing and publishing and marketing a book. And I think this is one of those topics that a lot of people don't talk about because I think it's one of those things where we go, it's just us. Other people don't have these issues. Other people, if you're a real writer, if you're a real author, you already got all this stuff. And like we're experts, right? So why on earth would we have to worry about um, fear and the role that it plays in our books? But I like to keep it real all the time with who I am and what I do. And I love to show how we don't always have it all under control. And I'm going to be the first to admit that I have dealt with fear at every step of the process. And I remember when I wrote my first book, which was How to Feel More Comfortable on Camera, which ironically is about fear. So it was just about, here I am writing about something. And to be honest with you, I really struggled with video. I'm an introvert. So I was kicking and screaming to be led to do video, but I knew that it was important for my business and I had to get over myself. And so when I wrote that book, I was simply sharing this is a journey I took as an introvert, of somebody who's like, I don't want to be on the camera, but knew I had to be on the camera. So how to get comfortable with it. So I basically just took you from, I wrote the book to yesterday me, of what the book that I needed to help me kind of get over all that stuff. But anyways, this podcast episode's not about that book, but it is about fear. And I remember when I first wrote that book and I got it up on Amazon, and it was all in the back end. And just in case you don't know how Amazon works, is that when you're an author and there's a back end of Amazon and a front end of Amazon. And the front end is what everybody sees. You go to Amazon.com or, UK, wherever you're located all over the world, and you see everything that's available for sale. Now, when you're an author, you get to go into the back end and you actually go into a place called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. And that is actually where you upload your manuscript. So whether you're talking about a paperback book or a Kindle book or, everything in between, that's where everything is in the back end of Amazon. So what happens, the magic of publishing a book, is you upload all your files, and then at that point it's in draft mode. And so you have to literally either schedule the date to publish, think of it as a LinkedIn post. It's the same idea. You can either, save it as a draft. You can say publish now in the moment, or you can schedule when you want it to actually be released into the world. So those are the options you have when you're publishing with Amazon. So I remember this was my very first experience with publishing. And literally it was, in draft mode. We had ordered the proofs. We looked at it and we knew everything was okay. But now it was just like, do. I got to click that button and publish that book. So I didn't do a scheduled release. I was going to do a live in the moment. And I'm telling you, I felt sick to my stomach. It's like I should have been happy and excited. I had worked really hard to figure out what I was going to put in my book. It was a mini book. It was a tiny book because I thought I'm just going to start with something small because I had struggled for so long to, another book I wrote about it was 21 years it took me to get that first book written and into the world. And so I purposely said, I'm going to have a low bar for myself. I just want to get the book done and published. So I pushed myself to get over that fear of writing and get that fear of putting everything out there. I moved through that and I got into the publishing stage. And when I finally, had the courage to click and hit publish, I was just sick to my stomach. And here's the crazy thing. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was like crazy. My book was up on Amazon, and I think I just went to bed that night. I was just like, okay, That's it. I can't do any more tonight. I just have to live with the fact that it's out there in the world. And what you will find with Amazon is if you don't tell people about your book, chances are nobody's gonna find it. It's like we'd like to think that it's just gonna like boom become a number one bestseller without us having to do anything. But no, that's where the marketing comes in. It's not enough to just have your book on Amazon. You actually now have to market that darn thing. And what that means is you just have to, it's not about buy my book, buy my book. It's just make your book visible to the people who might need your book. That's all you're doing is you're just kind of saying, hey, if this is for you, here's where it is. That's all you're doing. So it's not twisting people's arms to buy it. It's just letting your book be as visible, just like you want to be visible so that people will work with you. It's the same idea with a book. And I remember I was really afraid to tell people about this book. I was afraid. The fear was just crippling. And then I just really had to have a little sit down with myself and say, what good was writing this book if nobody can see it? You have to go out in the world and you have to market it. You have to let people know about it. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. They don't have to buy it. You're not holding a gun to anybody's head. And so I decided I had to get over myself and let people know about my book. And guess what happened? The people who are kind and lovely and wonderful, they all cheered me on. They were so supportive. And, some people went off and bought the Kindle version. Some people got the paperback version and off it went. Some people did nothing at all, but I put it out in the world and the people that were meant to find it found it. But here's the weird thing that happened. A few people who I know were actually quite upset with me. And they were upset because they said, how did I not know you were working on a book? They felt that it indicated my being secretive, indicated that they weren't really a close friend. They weren't really, I didn't really value their opinion. I didn't let them know one of the most important things. So they felt like hurt that I had kept this all to myself. I had to tell them, no, I'm neurotic. I didn't tell anybody about my book. It wasn't you. It was me. I was afraid. The fear monster had grabbed hold of me and literally gagged me. It had like tied me up and gagged me. And that's what I went through. And I learned from that. And I realized more often than not, we don't have to be afraid of tooting our own horn. We don't have to be afraid of letting people know about some awesome things that are going on in our life. We don't have to keep it to ourselves. We should be sharing the good. Don't just share the bad with people, share the good with people as well, because people want to help you celebrate. So those are the personal fears that I have gone through with my book. And, you still kind of always feel like, the marketing and, all that stuff. That's probably the hardest part about the book. We think the hardest part is writing the book. That actually ends up being the easiest point. When you actually write that book and get that book out, you're just like, boy, I thought that writing was going to be so hard. And maybe it was. Maybe you really struggled with the writing. But the thing is, all the other stuff is a lot more work. So of course, now I'm probably putting you off. It's like, well, then I'm not going to do a book at all. No, I still want you to do a book, but I just want you to realize that the fear can creep in at any part of the journey. So let's go through that journey. So the first thing is when you're writing the book. So the first fears that will come up is, you're going to have that fourth, 8th grade English teacher or 5th grade English teacher in your head kind of going, who are you to write this book? That comes up absolutely. And you have to just like slay that dragon and whoosh away those, that English teacher. They need to get out of your head and just go away. You don't want to, you don't want to be crippled by these crazy inner critics that we let them have this free rent in our head and they need to be evicted. kick them out and just say, if my, and this is my litmus test, if my book can help just one person, am I okay with that? And and if you really, think about that. If that really resonates for you, that is the best response to the who do you think you are? Because then you answer, I'm a person that wants to make the world a better place by sharing my life lessons, by sharing what I've done to do something. Because most of the time, our book is to help people. So why would we not want to do this? So writing the book, really, it's shushing those inner critics about why should I do this? So the fear of the blank page, that is a thing by itself too. Sometimes it's just like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. That's when I say, when you hit that, pick up your phone. Pick up your phone and just start talking. And you know what? Get out of the house. I find that if I go for a walk, I look at the trees and the squirrels and everything else when I go to the park. If you go for a walk and you just start yabbering into your phone, you get over yourself. You don't have that blank page when you're sitting at your computer. It's tough. It's tough to do that blank page because you have to get out of your own way. You just have to let those ideas flow. And when we're typing at a computer, there's that tendency to keep hitting that backspace and that delete key and changing it. And it's like, no, you have to do that brain dump. So whether that's a pen and paper, picking up your phone, a napkin, and in a restaurant, whatever you need to do, get the ideas out of your head and down into something that now you can use and start writing your book that way. I actually love to use podcasts and LinkedIn Lives and all sorts of great stuff as the content, blog articles I've written. I don't like starting from scratch. That's too much work. So that's how I like to write books. But really getting over that fear of the blank page, there's many, many ways that we can do that. So once you get that done, and then always during the editing process, this is where we have our book. And then we're just like, okay, I got to rein this puppy in. It's big. It's too big. Maybe this is 2 books. You really want to think about, this was my goal. This was my audience. Did the book meet both? Does it serve my audience, and is it going to accomplish that what I want? Maybe I want to give this book out at a conference I'm going to, and I feel that this really would be that extra thing that if I'm going to this conference and I'm talking about X, this will be the Y. They'll walk away and they'll have that toolkit in my book, and they'll nicely go together. So look at what your goal is. Look at what your audience is. And during the editing phase, and I'm talking about the developmental editing phase, this is where you just decide what stays in the book and what doesn't stay in the book. We're not sitting here looking at commas and, em dashes and all that stuff. We're looking higher level, and we might look at something and say, well, you know what? That's really a great story, but it doesn't belong here because it doesn't serve this audience, and it doesn't go with this book, and it doesn't have anything to do, but it's a great story. So I'll park it over here. Think of a parking lot. You got to park that over there in, with that little car, and you'll pick that up one day. So, again, going through that is so important, and don't be afraid, getting back to fear again, don't be afraid to be ruthless, to chop out what's not necessary, just out it goes. So when we get through that, we finally get, it's honed in, it's good to go. It's been edited all the way through. So you've gone through the developmental editing, you've gone through the copy editing, you've proofread it. It's gone to the typesetting and the layout, however you get that done. And now you're going to you're going to get it up on Amazon, and you're going to remember me, Gillian, sitting there hovering with my mouse going, I don't know if I can do it. And just know, this is where you have to take a really big, deep breath, and you just have to release it into the world, provided that you have done your best work, provided that you have read that book, you have gone through the author proof, you have, typed, you have painstakingly made sure that this book is a quality book. It's going to serve you well. So I never talk about just whipping something up there. You want to make sure this is it. I'm happy with this going out into the world in terms of this is a quality book and it's going to serve people. And you have to take that deep breath and just remember me saying, you can do this, that it's good. You've come so far. It would be terrible to turn back at that moment and not hit that publish button. And once you hit that publish button, then you now go into marketing mode. You have to let people know about your book. So that's where you want to do book launch posts. You want to get it out there. One of the easiest ways to do your first book is to consider having some sort of discount. Maybe you give your book away for free on one day. Maybe you make it 99 cents the first day so that you can just kind of don't feel too salesy getting it out there. So that's one way to kind of bridge that. Other people, they're just like, no, I feel good about this. Up it goes. That's $1 million and I don't care. There are people that confident, they know what they're doing, and more power to them. But for any of us who are in sort of part of the fear club, maybe that's a good transition for you, is like, I'm just going to offer it for 99 cents. That's a small ask. 99 cents. What is that? It's like a bottle of water. Like, it's like, what, 99 cents? It's a no-brainer. And by the way, that is the lowest that you can make your book on Amazon. You can't go any lower than that. And so that is one way to get over the fear of tooting your own horn, is making it about value. I'm actually doing a service by telling you about this book that's only 99 cents because it's going to go up to $4.99 on Monday. So, if you look at it that way, it's like, well, I would be mean if I didn't tell you about this, because if this book resonates for you, wouldn't you want to be kind to people and get it to them at the discount? So that's really important, is, reframing in your brain what that is and how that all works. So those are some of the fears we go through: the fear of writing, the fear of the publishing, hitting that button, and then the fear of the marketing and putting it out there. And one thing I want to tell you about that's kind of helped me through all this is recognizing there is a fear monster, and the fear monster likes to visit many of us. Most people don't talk about it. I'm okay talking about fear because I just feel that's a part of being a real person. We're not always as confident as we look, and that we come with baggage. Sometimes, you think about it, it's like maybe that's your like sister in your head, or your brother in your head, or your dad in your head that's just kind of going, now, Gillian, why are you doing this book? Why are you doing this book? And just as an aside, I feel sad that my parents never got to see me do my books. They would have actually been very proud of me. So I'm sad that they had passed away before I finally did that. So that to me was my biggest loss at waiting so long to publish my first book. My parents weren't here to, celebrate and cheer with me. But anyways, I want to tell you about this book, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is the book that I think every author who struggles with fear should read, because I just love Elizabeth Gilbert. She nails it. And this is a fabulous book about creativity and just everything that goes with it. But I wanted to read you this one thing in this book, because this has absolutely stuck with me forever, and it has always helped me with that fear monster. So she actually has a chapter, Elizabeth Gilbert, and if you don't know Elizabeth Gilbert, she did the Eat, Pray, Love. You probably saw the movie with Julia Roberts. It's like a fabulous book. I love Eat, Pray, Love. It's a great book. But Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. So this book is all about fear. So she has a chapter called Courage. And in the chapter on courage, she talks about the road trip. And what she does is she actually writes a letter to fear. And I want to read you this letter because I just love it. So she says, "Dearest fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you'll be joining us because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job seriously. Apparently, your job is to induce complete panic whenever I'm about to do anything interesting. And may I say, you are superb at your job. So, by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must. But I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to work hard and stay focused. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in this vehicle for all of us. So make yourself at home, but understand this: creativity and I are the only ones who will be making any decisions along the way. And I recognize and respect that you are part of this family. And so I will never exclude you from our activities. But still, your suggestions will never be followed. You're allowed to have a seat, you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the road maps. You're not allowed to suggest detours, and you're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive." So I just think that it was a wonderful framing of thinking about being in a car. And I do this. I think about when I'm afraid, I'm in the car and and I'm driving, I'm behind the wheel. And in the passenger seat is creativity. That's what I want to do. This is my new thing. So whether it's a book or, something I'm doing for my business, whatever, creativity's in the passenger seat. I'm driving the car and fear's in the back seat. And anytime fear starts putting its hand trying to come up to the front of the car, I slap it away. Not allowed to be there. Especially not allowed to touch that radio. I love that one. It's like, no, it's never going to be turned on the radio at all, just to sit in the back. So give it a pair of, headphones, listen to its own tunes on its phone, and you do you. So I hope this solo episode has helped you. If you don't have fear, more power to you. But if you're like me, think about it. And you know what? Some people actually, as they're going through this journey of becoming an author, some people actually reach out and get help. They need somebody to help them, to give them confidence. Sometimes you just go to a friend, colleague, usually not your family, which is really strange. I have a really, really supportive family, so I'm really lucky. But not everybody has a supportive family, and not everybody has supportive friends. And the weirdest thing you'll find is that sometimes when you're doing something really, really bold, it ruffles feathers of people in your inner circle. And they might want you to kind of stay down, stay down. It's like, who do you think you are? Kind of, I always think of those crabs in a bucket. Crabs will, anytime you put crabs in a bucket and a crab tries to get out, the other crabs try to pull them back. And it can be the same sort of thing. So you want to think about if anybody's just like giving you like those weird little digs at the end while you're trying to have your confidence, it could be really more about their agenda than yours. They just, a lot of times when we do something bold like this, it does ruffle feathers, and not always are people happy for you. So find those people who are your cheerleaders, your colleagues, your coach. Some people actually go and get a confidence coach. This is where other people might want to work with a book coach because they've been working all the way through, kind of, helping you in those moments where you're like in the messy middle of doing your book and everything that falls in between. But just know that fear is real, but fear is false evidence appearing real and always belongs in the back seat, never in the front, and never drive in the car. So with that, I will leave you for this episode today, and we'll see you all again next time. Bye, everybody.